All right, let's get ready for another deep dive. And, today we're headed to the zoo.
Ooh, a zoo?
But we're not just talking about any animals, right? We're talking about like the icons,
Right.
the animals that just make a zoo visit.
Unforgettable,
Yeah,
yeah.
unforgettable.
Yeah.
Exactly. And to guide our adventure today, we've got a list,
Okay.
a top 10 list,
I
actually.
love a good list.
It's top 10 iconic zoo animals
All right.
from, the top 10,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
which is all about those user-generated lists. So
User-generated.
very opinion-based,
Mm.
and those always spark some fun debate.
Oh, absolutely. It's so interesting because even though they're subjective, they give us a little bit of a peek into what really resonates with people,
Yeah.
even if we don't always agree with the rankings.
Yeah, for sure. So today, let's dive into what makes these animals so iconic
Hmm.
and maybe uncover some surprises along the way. So, are you ready?
Lead the way. I'm ready.
Okay. Well, right out of gate, this list does not mess around. Okay. It goes straight for the heavy hitters. The top 3: elephants,
Makes sense.
lions, and giraffes.
Right.
I mean, come on. It's hard to argue with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to see why those 3 are considered classics. I mean, elephants, of course, are the largest land animals, right,
Yeah.
on Earth. So their size,
Yeah, awe-inspiring.
it's awe-inspiring. And lions, with, their powerful presence and those magnificent manes,
yeah.
have earned their title as king of the savannah. And then giraffes. I mean, the tallest living terrestrial animals with their uniquely long necks, their graceful movements, are all
Yeah.
instantly recognizable and captivating.
Yeah, and, the source even points out that lions exhibit sexual dimorphism.
Oh, yeah.
So the males and females look different.
Right.
And who doesn't love a good lion's mane?
Oh, it's just like, it's a symbol of power and majesty.
Right, exactly. Okay, so then we start going down the list, right? And things get a little interesting because coming in at number 4, even above penguins, are zebras.
Zebras, okay.
And I have to admit, I was a little surprised by that.
Really?
I mean, zebras are cool, but are they
yeah.
that iconic?
I think that's where the subjective nature of these lists really comes into play, right?
Yeah.
I mean, their striking black and white pattern,
Yeah.
definitely memorable,
Yeah.
very eye-catching. But whether they reach,
Right?
that same level as the top 3,
Yeah.
debatable.
Yeah, for sure.
And speaking of zebras,
Okay.
it's interesting to note that there are actually 3 different species of zebras.
Oh, really?
You've got gravy zebras with their very fine stripes and large, round ears. Plains zebras, which are the most common type, with bold stripes and smaller ears. And then mountain zebras, which have a dewlap on their throat
Wow. Okay.
and a grid pattern on the rump.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of diversity within the zebra family.
That's so interesting. See, I'm learning things already.
Yeah.
Okay, this next one, I have to admit,
Oh.
this one made me chuckle a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, so coming in further down the list, goats.
Goats.
Yeah, and the source actually says, no visit to the zoo is complete without petting a fuzzy goat.
Oh, petting zoo, right.
Yeah.
You got to have that interaction.
But who knew goats were such a highlight?
It seems silly, but it really does touch on a super important aspect of the zoo experience, right? Which is that hands-on interaction,
Yeah.
especially for younger visitors, I think. Being able to touch and connect with an animal,
Yeah.
it creates a lasting impression.
Absolutely.
And, it fosters a sense of wonder and empathy.
Yeah.
And, we often think of goats as, just farm animals.
Right.
But they actually have a pretty fascinating history.
Okay.
Domestic goats are descended from wild goats of Southwest Asia and Eastern Europe.
Oh, wow.
And they've been domesticated for thousands of years
Totally.
and have played important roles in human societies around the world.
That's so cool. Okay, well, let's keep venturing down this list because things get even more interesting when we start looking at some of these other contenders.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Okay. So, speaking of surprising animal facts, this list includes pandas.
Pandas.
Oh, yeah. I bet you can picture them right now.
Yeah.
Those black and white bundles of fluff, practically synonymous with cuteness.
Absolutely. They're like international superstars.
Right.
Even if most of us will only ever see them in a zoo.
Yeah.
But, something I learned from this list that kind of blew my mind. Pandas aren't actually bears.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, their classification has actually been a source of debate
Really?
for a long time. For years, scientists went back and forth trying to, figure out their closest relatives.
Yeah.
Some argued that they were more closely related to raccoons.
Raccoons.
Yeah, placing them in a group called mustaloids, which are basically small carnivorous mammals,
Oh.
like weasels and otters and badgers.
Oh,
Others insisted on their bear-like qualities.
right.
It turns out, though, through genetic analysis, we've learned that they are indeed a unique type of bear.
Okay.
But they diverged from other bear species millions of years ago.
So they are bears.
Yes.
But like the distant cousins of the bear family.
You could say that. And it just goes to show there's always more to learn, even about the animals we think we know so well.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of animals we think we know,
Okay.
the next one on the list really made me think about like the definition of a zoo animal.
Okay.
Dolphins.
Dolphins.
I mean, who doesn't love
Oh, they're amazing.
watching dolphins glide through the water? But like,
Yeah.
are they really in the same category as like lions or elephants?
Right. It really
Yeah.
does raise those interesting questions
Yeah.
about, how we categorize these spaces
Yeah.
and the animals that live in them.
Yeah.
And it kind of speaks to something we've touched on already, right? Which is
Yeah.
the evolving role of zoos themselves. In the past, zoos were often focused on showcasing like exotic animals,
Right.
often in,
Less than ideal conditions.
less than ideal conditions. Yeah.
Yeah.
But today, a lot of zoos are shifting their focus to prioritize conservation, research, and education.
Yeah.
They're working to protect endangered species, study animal behavior, teach the public about the importance of biodiversity.
Right. And that shift in priorities might explain why
Okay.
some more unexpected animals
Okay.
like foxes are starting to show up on these lists.
Exactly. Yeah, foxes are adaptable creatures. They're increasingly found in urban areas closer to humans.
Yeah.
So maybe their inclusion reflects like a growing awareness of the wildlife that's all around us,
Yeah.
even the ones we might not consider exotic.
Right. It's like we're expanding our definition of
Yeah,
what's worthy of our attention and protection.
absolutely.
It's not just about the big, impressive creatures anymore. It's
Right.
about appreciating the diversity of life
I love that.
all around us.
That's well said.
Looking at this list,
Okay.
it's interesting to note who's missing
Okay.
from the list.
Who didn't make the cut?
Yeah. Animals like orangutans,
Oh, okay.
kangaroos,
Right.
and hippos.
Hmm.
Like those are all animals that I associate with zoos.
Yes.
But they didn't make the top 10. So I
Right.
wonder why.
That's a good question. It makes you wonder, what makes an animal
Yeah.
iconic enough to land on a list like this?
Yeah. Is it
With
about
size.
size?
Yeah.
Perceived danger?
Yeah.
Familiarity?
Familiarity, right?
Conservation status?
Maybe a combination of all those things. I mean, you've got orangutans, they're critically endangered, and their intelligence and human-like features are, fascinating.
Right.
But are they as visually striking as, like, a lion or a giraffe?
Yeah.
Kangaroos, I mean, they're unique. They've got that, Aussie appeal, but maybe they're just a little too laid back.
Right.
Maybe their demeanor isn't exciting enough for
Yeah.
some people. And hippos.
Yeah.
I mean, they're huge and powerful, but maybe their mostly aquatic lifestyle doesn't lend itself to the same kind of, like, zoo exhibit
Yeah.
as a land-based animal.
So it's almost like we're trying to figure out
Yeah.
what captures the public's imagination and makes them a
Okay.
true zoo star.
A zoo star, exactly.
But, while it's fun to kind of debate these rankings,
Sure.
I think it's also important to think about the implications,
Absolutely.
right? If certain animals don't capture the public's attention,
Right.
it can be harder to raise awareness and funding for their conservation.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So it highlights the responsibility
Yeah.
zoos have to not just, showcase
Right.
the crowd pleasers,
Yeah.
but also, the lesser known species
Right.
that need our attention and protection.
Absolutely.
They need to tell the whole story,
Yes.
not just the highlights.
Well said.
This whole discussion has got me thinking about
Okay.
the relationship between zoos and the animals they house.
Yeah.
Like, does seeing an animal in a zoo change
Oh, that's an interesting question.
how we view it in the wild?
That's a profound question.
Yeah.
And one that deserves
Yeah.
careful consideration.
Yeah. It makes you think, like you wonder if that controlled environment, the safety and predictability of a zoo, maybe gives us a bit of a skewed perspective.
I think that's it, isn't it? Like, zoos, by their nature, kind of present a bit of a sanitized version of the wild. The
Yeah.
animals are well cared for, they get their meals, they don't have to worry about predators,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
all those harsh realities
Yeah.
that they would face in their natural habitats.
Right. It's a far cry from that daily struggle for survival.
Yeah, yeah.
So does that, like, sanitized view, that filtered lens, does it make us less aware?
Mhm.
Or could it actually, I don't know, spark a deeper appreciation
Yeah.
for, like, their resilience and adaptability?
It's a complex question, for sure.
Yeah.
No easy answers. I mean, some might argue that seeing an animal in a zoo, even in that controlled environment, it can awaken a sense of wonder and empathy
Right.
that might not otherwise exist.
Yeah.
They can help us connect with them on a more personal level, make them feel relatable, and inspire us to learn more about them and the challenges they face in the wild.
And that knowledge, that empathy,
Yeah.
that could be the first step towards taking action.
Absolutely. Zoos can be powerful platforms for conservation education.
Yeah.
They can teach us about the threats facing different species, habitat loss, climate change, poaching,
Right.
and they can really empower us to make
Yeah.
a difference.
Even small actions, right?
Right.
Supporting conservation organizations, making sustainable choices, just raising awareness among our friends and family. Like,
Yeah.
it all adds up.
It all adds up, and that's why it's so crucial for zoos to go beyond just exhibiting animals. They need to engage with the visitors, start a conversation about conservation, make it personal, show people how we're all connected.
Yeah.
It's not just about observing anymore.
Right.
It's about participating.
Yeah. Taking action.
Taking action, yeah. And, one of the most thought-provoking animals on this list, in terms of conservation,
Yeah.
is the lemur.
Oh, lemurs. Yeah. Further down on the list.
Yeah, but the source points out that the word lemur actually comes from Roman mythology.
Oh, that's right. Lemurs.
Yeah.
Weren't those like ghosts or spirits?
Exactly. Pretty fitting name, right?
Yeah.
For these wide-eyed nocturnal primates from Madagascar.
Yeah. They've got those haunting calls, that unique look.
Totally. But sadly, a lot of lemur species are critically endangered
Yeah.
because of habitat destruction and the illegal pet trade.
It's just a reminder that all this beauty and wonder we see in zoos, it's fragile.
It is.
It's threatened out there.
It is. And it brings us back to that question, does seeing an animal in a zoo change how we view it in the wild?
Right.
I think it's a question each visitor has to answer for themselves.
Yeah.
The important thing is that we're asking it,
Right.
that we're reflecting, and that we're using those experiences to inform our actions.
Well said. So to wrap up our deep dive into the world of iconic zoo animals, I think the takeaway is this. Zoos can be so much more than just places to see cool animals.
Absolutely.
They can be gateways to understanding the natural world and catalysts for positive change.
I couldn't agree more. And to our listeners, we hope this sparked your curiosity, got you thinking, and maybe even inspired you to see zoos and the animal world in a whole new light.
Happy exploring.